Hi guys, it's Drew here, and I thought I was going to make a video on something else, but apparently when I started journaling and doing some dream interpretation, something else occurred, and I really felt that it was time that I actually voice this out loud and share it, because I think it's a very common thing that I'm experiencing, but even though it's common, it's still very personal. So by the title of this video you can kind of tell what the theme is going to be about, and it's about finishing your first draft or finishing a story, and kind of the phases of what that process is or was to me, and why I feel like I'm kind of in the tortured artist mentality at the moment around some certain things. So I'm going to preface this by saying basically that this is a really large topic, but this is something that I would like to sort of discuss now and maybe discuss in the future if you guys are interested. I think it's just a great way to just talk sometimes. So it's going to be a bit rambly and not really structured, but that's just how I am at the moment. And again, it's very hot out here in Australia, and I may be a bit sort of slow with the old ticker, but ticker brain. As you can see already, I'm starting to ramble. But yeah, and if you can hear a sound, it's a fan behind me. Okay, this has been 2 minutes and I really need to get started. Okay guys, so I've been working with the Tarot of the She for 2 days, and I kind of talked a little bit about it in my previous video of the decks I'm going to be using. So I had trouble with the Dancer Prince, the Gift of Passion this morning. Not because I couldn't tap into the card, but because there was like this undertone of energy where it felt really brooding and very withdrawn, but also like they want to pull you, like he wants to pull you into some dark shit, or some sort of just a little bit of wallowing, a little bit of romancing, a little bit of sort of crying for attention kind of thing. I don't know how to describe it. Like I said in my video, these cards are really weird. But anyway, the overall theme that I got was that he wanted to invite me in to really look at some stuff today around my art, around my creative writing. And then when I looked in the meaning of the book, it talked about sort of romance and love and obsession and passion and sort of a tortured artist brooding. And it kind of like made a lot of sense to me, because lately, after I have finished the first draft of this novel that I'm working on, I've been very resistant to writing itself, or whenever I do something else, I feel like I should be writing or working on this story, because I've spent a whole 2 years in this entire world itself. I have written a previous novel before, I've written short stories around this novel, I've started a novella, and I came back to this novel. So I've been spending a lot of my mental space in this world that I've created. And so I feel very much obsessed with this world. I have sort of romanticized it a lot, and it is very important to me to reconnect with this world, but I feel like I'm a little bit stuck. And so this card really did talk about how, well, I noticed that I have been sort of in that mentality of talking about writing or reading about writing or feeling like I want to write and work on this story, but just not being able to get to the page. And the thing is with it, I don't necessarily need to, because I've just finished a draft, and I think it's a really good idea when you have finished a story to let it sit for a while. But because I've been working on it so much, it's been really hard for me to withdraw and come back down to earth. If you are a writer, a creative person, which I think we all are, as witches, as druids, as artists, as anything, as people and humans and souls, we are creative people. And we do go through periods of time where we have created something and we've sustained something, and we have to kind of let it go for a little bit. I mean, motherhood is about that. Motherhood, well, not all about that, but it is about birthing something into the world and watching it grow and helping it nourish it and nurture it. And you can see this being, this beautiful expression of ourselves from an idea or conception or parts of our soul and our DNA and our mind and our body. And to let that go really hurts. And I hadn't really considered that part of being the tortured artist, or part of being brooding and obsessing over this story that I love so much, is because I had to let go of the characters in it. And some of the characters in it are really, really close to me, really close to my heart. You know, you spend like hours and hours of your day planning and reading and writing and working with these people that do come to be people, and they are people, and I really do believe that they exist in other worlds. So I thought that I would sort of go through some of my Craft deck and talk a little bit about what the cards mean to me, just in a little bit of detail, and sort of go through the process of how that came about, or how this story came about, and, you know, explore it a little bit more in some other videos, but really just sort of share that space with you guys. Really, I think that's the main thing. I'm just sort of sharing that space, especially for people who are writers and have been through this and know the feeling of just utter joy and pleasure from finishing something and coming to a point in a massive project, but also the downside of that as well. So I always like to think of the Fool whenever I'm starting a project, because it is the initiator. But along with the initiator with my journey also comes the High Priestess and the Moon. Okay. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the High Priestess, because I actually just did a little blog post about how I connect to my higher self and gain wisdom, and why that is one of the main reasons that I write. And for the High Priestess come through as a character called Vespa, and Vespa has been in my conscious mind for the past 2.5 years, and I've been writing about her story since then. She came through the moon, she came through the night, she came through my dreams, and when I first started writing my ideas about her, it was just a dream. It was basically a dream where there was sort of this one whole world, but there was a split. So half of the world was pretty much like ours, but you could visually see it. You could visually see cities and whatnot broken in half. So half of the world would be up this way and half of the world would be down that way. But you could see it everywhere. And this world got attacked by a race of beings, and they were looking for sort of people that they could genetically take on board and sort of use their DNA and kind of create a new race. And that was my main idea to start with. And there would be this sort of romantic couple, an older lady in her 30s and her husband, and they would get separated during that time, and she would have to choose whether to stay on the earth and look for her husband and risk being detonated with the rest of them, or take a risk and, you know, change her life, change her, I guess, world, and let go. But when I sat down to write that story in NaNoWriMo in November, the first page that came to me, that character was not that person. This character had a mind of its own. She came in, boots, you know, stomping, like through a doorway, and she spoke. She spoke immediately. She spoke clearly, and she had her story to tell. And I truly believe that she is a High Priestess in another time, sort of alternative reality, parallel world. I'm not quite sure which one she's from, but she is my higher self in another realm, and she's a High Priestess. Because this theme of High Priestess energy and dreams and prophecies and seers is really prevalent in a lot of my stories too, because it's something that I'm trying to discover myself, but also something that I think is really important to share with other people. And it's a really fantastic way to connect with my goddess and my higher self and these beings and beautiful people from other times and space, and who want to create with me. And I always feel like I am this sort of messenger. I am a channel. I've often done tarot channeling and art channeling, but for me, channeling this way and when I write is less about sort of creating a cookie cutter character and more about listening to my intuition and hearing whoever wants to speak and telling their stories, because I really truly believe that I tell their stories. And I believe that us writers, we are written about in other places as well. So that's another topic altogether. But the High Priestess Vesper came through and she had a story to tell, because her story is large, her world is large, and I really feel gifted and honoured to be able to share that. And I feel like when I do connect with her, that is the character I connect with. I wanted to mention the moon because the moon for me is about wisdom, is about dreaming, is about tapping into that spiritual aspect, that feminine intuition, really trusting that intuition. With my dreams, I write them down, but a lot of the time they just stay in my journal. I just document them because I really love to research them and sort of do some work with them. But this dream and trusting that intuition and looking within the well of my soul and the well of wisdom and the well of that inspiration, that chalice that's holding all that juicy goodness, without listening to that feminine intuition and using the masculine energy as well from the solar to actually put that into practice, I don't think I would have had such a nourishing and beautiful experience that I've had writing this character and writing the characters of this novel. And I think that's why it hurts so much, because there is still this wealth of wisdom, there is still this whole world that I want to explore, that I plan to explore, that there's locations and people and there's stories. Each character has a story, not just this main character. And I feel like it's in here. It's all in my being, my body, and I just need to tap into that. And by tapping into the lunar energy and filling that cup and sort of scrying and searing with that energy, I really do believe that you can really create something magical and fulfilling and nourishing and a teacher and a map from just being able to put those intuitive insights onto paper. Sorry, I'm rambling. Onto paper, and being able to share that. And whether you want to share that with other people in a published format, or whether you want to share that with just yourself, I really believe it's, for me personally, I started off just wanting to write for myself, and that always has to be the driving force. I always have to write for myself because it is for myself. But when you start sharing these wonderful wisdoms and gems and stories, that's when we really connect as humans. That's when we can really identify the questions and themes and stories and myths and magic beneath each story, because each one of us has our own stories to share. And as a writer, I think it's really fantastic that we not only get to share our own stories, but we get to share the stories of all these other beings and be inspired and influenced by so many other people. So I really think being inspired by the moon and the magic is what really kept me going and writing through that period of time. Next, I want to talk about the Hermit. I'm going to talk about the Hermit in the way that it's about solitude for me and taking time away from other people. But also for me, it was about honouring that side of myself and knowing that I needed to do this. I've written a lot of stuff in my life. Lots of novels, lots of novellas, lots of stories and poems. Nothing published except for one poem. That's due to some of my imposter syndrome issues and shadows that I'm dealing with this year about being in the spotlight. Which thankfully Kellyanne really started my year off with a push in that direction, because I was sort of thinking about sharing some of my stories and poetry, and especially on this channel, and it really, I got that push from Kellyanne in that video. That was the universe for me saying, yes, do this. But part of being a hermit has been taking that time and setting boundaries with myself, setting boundaries with other people too, saying that this path has been important. Writing this down has been important. Spending time in that sacred space for hours where I am typing at a screen and letting my imagination flow, letting that energy flow, connecting to other people, connecting to that spiritual story or that personal story, or asking the questions that are in my soul and the lessons that I want to learn and exploring those through words and fiction is important. And to do that, I've needed to step away. I've needed to take risks. I've needed to tell people, no, I'm not coming out today. No, I need some time to myself. No, I need to do my journaling and my tarot and brainstorming. But that's also been really fantastic too, because even though it's a hermit card, I always see the loyal friend. The friend and the guide and the protector as a wolf. And for me, that's about community as well, because sometimes two introverts can come together to create a wonderful collaboration of just silence. Sometimes it's been really fantastic when I've written, like while I've been writing my stories, to just be connected with someone on the other end of the computer, where we might write for half an hour in silence and then talk about what we've written, or we might write all day or all week and then sort of check in with each other. So I think it's sort of also, for me, has been a like-minded situation where two people have come together who do identify with this hermit and do identify with this solitude, especially in the creative process, and honour that and come together to support that, because I think that's another thing that's integral to being able to create and sustain a long-term nourishing project, is being able to be supported in that way and not being made to feel like you were judged or feel like you're judging yourself. So the next stage of that writing process was that I started to sort of move into the Two of Cups. And the Two of Cups, I'm going to use a term from tarot. Oh my gosh. Oh, sorry guys, I'll grab the book. Tarot in dream interpretation. It has an interpretation of the dream that connects with each card. And the Two of Cups symbolizes a desire to create the world of, a desire to create in the world of emotions. Creating in a world of emotions is writing. I truly believe that. For me, and I didn't really think too hard about this until now, but by journaling about the Two of Cups and the partnership of trusting that story, trusting my own intuition, trusting my own skills, trusting that I have weaknesses and strengths, and that to combine them together and sort of, use that cauldron and mix all that juicy stuff together. That's provided me the foundation I've needed to be able to step into this world of emotions. Writing about one character or two characters is a very emotional journey. Writing about my life in general as a journaler is an emotional journey. Then you add a cast of say 6 or 7 to 8 characters. You've got a lot going on, and most novels do have anywhere between 2 to 5 main characters, major or minor characters, sorry. So being able to step into that world and sort of handle all those emotional states while there's physical states happening and spiritual states happening, it's a complex journey. It does take a lot of your energy to be a writer. It does take a lot of your time. It does take a lot of your beliefs, and like I said, it takes a lot of boundary setting to do that. And with emotions, you have to set that boundary within yourself as well, which really relates to the next card I wanted to talk to that ties in with this. I'm sorry if I cough. It's really hot and I get really dry throat. Is death. So, at the end of my first draft, probably about 2 chapters before the ending, one of the main characters dies. I kind of knew it was going to happen, but I didn't at the same time. Now, keep in mind that I've spent like 1.5 years with these characters, probably about a year with most of them, and this character in particular about 1.5 years. When she died, it was a rebirth for me, and it was also a rebirth period for my main character and everybody in that novel. I felt like even though I was the writer, I was watching their whole world crumble, and it was traumatizing. And I cried. I finished that scene, I put my music on, and I bawled my eyes out because it was very evocative, it was very powerful, but that death was necessary. And I think when you are writing, it's important to know that death in a scene or death as a way of letting go of certain parts of your novel, or certain times when you can't write, or certain themes that you want to write about, or questions that are still unanswered or can't be answered, or even even the ideas that you had to start with and begin with, they will die. They will not be the same as they are when you sat down to write that first page. Not in the first draft, the second draft, or even the end. There is a large gap between that initial spark, that initial idea, and the finished product. And being able to know that is a hard process. Being able to accept it as a hard process. I wanted to keep this character alive, only because I couldn't kill her. And because death is such a tricky topic in my own life, and it's something that I'm walking the sort of lines with as well, with venerating death goddesses and working through what death means to me, it was really reflected in the writing process as well. And that's one thing that I do love about the death card, and I love about when ideas die, is that they're sort of being fertilized to be reborn again. And only by being reborn can you have those fresh insights that come for the next sort of draft, and the next round, or the next chapter, or the next idea. And sometimes when you cling too much onto those ideas, that's when the death comes within your own actual practice itself. I found that that death process really starts to get heavy and doesn't shift when I'm clinging too much to that idea of death. And that's where I guess the tortured artist comes in as well. Sorry guys. So I guess the last couple of cards are ones that are sort of talking about where I'm at right now. So I really feel like I'm in the hangman position. I'm waiting. I've chosen to wait. This is something that I need to remember every day. I have chosen to put this story aside. I have chosen to leave the draft as it is. And that is a sacrifice. Every day I have to wake up, every day I wake up, and I have to remember that I made that choice, but I can always change it as well. I can always turn it upside down if I really want to, but right now I want to focus on my poetry and my blog post, and really making some great content for this channel, and just sort of brainstorming and sort of connecting with my characters as well. Connecting through meditation and writing to my characters and sort of fleshing things out. That is all art, that is all creating, that is all part of the writing process, and that is one way to get through past that tortured artist stage, to really actually honour that obsession that you have with a project or an idea or something that you're working on. It is okay to be obsessive. Obsession is a really interesting word that I love to explore in another video, and I really feel like by being able to tap into that, you also are able to honour that sacrifice that you've made not to do other things, and put that intention in what you do really feel like you want to do, and what you are drawn to, or what stories you're willing to tell, or drawn to tell from another angle. I have had many sleepless nights and nightmares. The nightmare card came up yesterday, and I wrote a really great poem that I felt for me was a really great poem to sort of shift things and start moving, and realize that I'm the person who stabbed myself in the dark. I'm the person who is putting a hold on things, and I am the person in charge of moving this story forward, deciding what I want to do with it, and really exploring other avenues. And I really feel like I can turn that upside down, or take some of those swords off the wall, and have a bit of a sleepful or restful night. But the thing is too, I also see this card as sort of restless sleeping as well, when you do have a lot of ideas and you're being very overwhelmed. So that's something I'm going through at the moment as well. With the shift in perspective, and the shift in wanting to actually approach my writing again, but just in a different form, or tell a different story inside this world, I've found that I'm sleeping sort of a bit more rougher, and I'm having more ideas and having to write them down and sort of discern which ones are better or which ones I really want to use. But at the same time, I still feel like I haven't quite shifted all of that energy out just yet, and I'm still in that Nine of Swords position, but today I feel like I'm moving out of it. And lastly, I wanted to sort of talk about these three cards in unison. So we've talked about a little bit about rebirth, and that's kind of like the second draft, or letting something sit and permeate so that it can sort of gather up new inspiration and new ideas. I really feel like this is going to be me in a couple of weeks. I'm starting university in a writing course where I will be talking about novels, I will be talking about poetry, I will be writing non-fiction, fiction, and I really wanted to take my novel through that 2-year course, and I will. So I'll be coming out of that darkness, and I will take that work through, as well as write new work. And I think the thing about rebirth is that you're always creating, there's always ideas, there's always new ways to compost things that have died, and there's always new ways to nourish those blossoms that are already starting to come through from that gestation period. A tower showed up many times. The tower for me was more around technology, and because my natural process was typing on the computer, because I can usually do about anywhere between 2,000 to 10,000 words a day on the computer. So systematically, all my computers and technologies broke down over a course of 6 months, just through old computers, the robbery, and other sort of weird issues with the one I'm using right now. And it was difficult. It was difficult to adjust to handwriting and having sore hands and trying to find quiet spaces in libraries and public places. But that adaptability has taught me so much about writing, about my spirit of writing. And really, what I'm going through right now is important as much as the pleasurable situation of writing is, as much as finishing that novel is. Going through that whole tower period of recognizing that I've written something and now I actually have to do something with it and want to do something with it, and breaking down the idea that I can't, that I have imposter syndrome, that no one will read it, all that inner critic shit. I need to pull that shit down, and that needs to come down, and so does the pleasurable side of things. It all needs to crumble so that I can rebuild that foundation again and start from a new perspective. So we come full circle again. I am the tortured artist, but I am also a happy artist. I'm gonna be going through that period of writing and creating and living and tapping into that energy as a natural state. It is the cycle of life. It is the world. You know, I'm going to be exploring different worlds, and each world I'm going to have to go through this journey, and each draft I'm going to have to go through this journey, and each page I'll be going through the journey of ideas and writing it and losing it and finding things. And I think that is a beautiful part of writing, a necessary part of living and being a creative artist, is to acknowledge that world. The Ouroboros, I can never say that properly, Ouroboros. I always think about the snake that bites its own tail. It's never ending. It is just never ending. It just keeps going. So I have to remember sometimes that no matter what I'm working on, even if this story fails, even if I don't write anything else of this story, there will still be more. There will still be more to create. There will still be more stories to tell. Whether that's my own, whether that's somebody else's story that they want to share, or whether that's just something that has come from a dream and wants to be spoken, wants to be heard, a message that wants to be heard, a path that I need to walk, a story I need to tell to share with other people so that they can heal. And that is why I'm here today, sharing my story and sharing my space. Because even though I am the tortured artist, I'm also a happy artist. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope you create wonderful, nourishing stories and found this video helpful. Thanks guys. Bye.